So whenever students plan for their revision timetable, this is how it looks like. As you can see, it's a forward-looking approach. Usually, what students would do is to see how much time they have left to the exam, and then they will be like, oh, since I have 2 weeks left and I have 5 chapters to study, let me just schedule 1 day to study 1 chapter. But this is not the most effective way to plan for your timetable, because when you plan something in advance, there will always be some last-minute things that happens on a day that disrupts your schedule. Also, you run into the risk of not being able to finish what you want to cover because you might underestimate the amount of time it takes to finish a study session. Additionally, this method does not allow you to track the progress of your work because you are just merely allocating your study sessions according to how much time you have left and how much you have to cover. So, what is the most effective way to build a revision timetable? Let me introduce to you the retrospective revision timetable. What is this? As the name implies, it's a backward-looking timetable rather than a traditional forward-looking timetable. What drives this timetable is that it uses the spaced repetition technique, which is the ultimate force for studying and retaining information. If you want to learn more about this, check out my previous video where I mentioned about this technique, and the link is in the description down below. Don't worry if the term sounds scary, because I'm going to teach you step by step on how to do this. The app I'm using is Notion, which is completely free of charge, but you can also use Excel sheets or Google Sheet for this. So the first step would be to check what are the chapters that will be covered in your exam, and then list them down. And then next, create columns for repetition, date, and status, and repeat these 3 times. So what are these columns for? As mentioned, this timetable uses the spaced repetition technique, which is studying repeatedly in spaced intervals. This is because we need to interrupt the forgetting curve in order to allow us to retain the information. So how do I go about doing this first? Well, the first question I will ask myself is, from all the lessons that I have attended so far and all the assignments that I did, which chapter am I the most not sure of? Then I will allocate to studying that chapter first for the first session. So for instance, I'm most not confident of the topic Monopoly. I will study this chapter first, and then I will type down what was the method of studying. So for instance, maybe I test myself from the questions that I've written in my flashcards a few weeks back. So I will just type down here flashcards. And then I will put down the date. For instance, I studied this on maybe 23rd September. Then I will put down the status, whether did I have a better understanding of the topic after this session, or was my understanding still poor, right? So maybe after this session, I had a much more in-depth understanding, and maybe I can indicate this as neutral. Yeah, and then I will repeat this for the rest of the chapters. So fast forward time and you have finished your first revision for all the chapters. Moving forward, the next step would be to look at all the status and then place your focus on the chapter which you had a porous understanding of. So looking at this, I will place my focus on Lecture 3 Uncertainty 2, and maybe now I do some past year papers to see how the exam questions are like. So I indicate here problem set, past year papers, and the date. And maybe after doing past year papers, I find that hey, maybe it wasn't that hard, right? And now it has turned neutral. And then next, looking at the next few chapters, the next one I should focus on is either Lecture 2 or Lecture 4. So maybe I will do Lecture 2 first. And maybe this time I test myself questions from the flashcards which I have written. And I put here flashcards, 29 September. And maybe now, hooray! I completely understand this chapter and I'm ready to ace the exam if this chapter comes out. So I indicate here good. And then the next chapter will be Lecture 4. Maybe this time I also do some past year papers. And maybe hooray, I also fully understand what this chapter is about. And the final chapter left is lecture 3. So maybe now I will do flashcards as a last step to reinforce on what I have learned and test myself using these questions. So down here, flashcards. And is there even a 31st September? I believe no, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to put 1st October. And hooray, now I understand this chapter, so I can put it good. So the idea is that at the end of your study sessions, everything here should turn green. This will ensure that you are ready for your exam. So you can see how this timetable triumphs over the traditional timetable because it allows me to track the progress of my work, so I can place my priority on chapters that I'm weaker in. And also, this timetable ensures that I will have a great understanding of all the chapters that are required for the exam, so that I will be ready to crush the exam and get an A. I hope you found this video to be very helpful, and also remember to check out my previous video where I shared with you killer study techniques. And if you want to get more useful tips like this, then join the universe and click the subscribe button down below. Also, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Thank you, all the best for your midterms, and see you!